Okay, hello, lovely people. Good afternoon, and welcome to Hume's 200 Film Appreciation. And this session, we're going to be talking about writing your screenplay, the craft of story. Okay, we'll start with story. Hi, everybody. Kamusta? How are you? Wow. It's October now. It's amazing. It's October 7th. And I'm really glad that you are making it this far. We're about to enter into our midterm exam season, and I'm just hoping that you are gradually reviewing your notes and gradually, studying what has been discussed so far in our subject and in other subjects, just so you don't get into that whole midterm cram craze. Okay, so let's begin. And I'd like us to begin with just some good deep, breaths. Good deep breaths. Okay, let's go. I'm a fan of breathing. Okay, let's do that one more time. Okay, so breathe from like your diaphragm or your stomach. Don't breathe from your chest. Okay, musamot ka agit, no? You'll get more agitated when you breathe from your chest. So try to breathe from your stomach. Try to fix your posture right now and just breathe, okay? And smile. Okay, great. Thank you for breathing with me. Breathing is a privilege that a lot of people don't get to enjoy anymore. So let's appreciate it. And again, this is writing your screenplay. As you can see, we are now entering into the film making uh, lap. Okay, so it's now we're entering the filmmaking lap of our Humes 200 course, and grave, it's getting so exciting. Now, this is just a taste of the filmmaking lab. This will be included in your midterm examination, so please focus. And for your attendance, you are going to take notes. So please take notes, and I will post a submissions post on Facebook so you can submit your notes. And that will be your attendance for today. Now, let's begin, okay? And if you are a coffee person, take a sip of your coffee. Let's go. So, let's begin with this question. How do you tell stories? How do you tell stories? I think we already kind of opened that up in class in our previous sessions that filmmaking is essentially storytelling, right? And deep within our DNA, we are storytellers from prehistoric times before our colonizers came. Our ancestors were already telling stories, right? We had myth and all of these wonders. And when our colonizers came, we had all of these other forms or expressions of storytelling, such as the zarzuela and the moro moro. And then it evolved into just theater, right? Coming in, and then film eventually made its way. Photography and film eventually made its way with the Americans and the Europeans. And now we are where we are. We live in our previous discussions, if you remember, we live in such a different society from the one that we look back into, right? When exposure would take at least 30 to 45 minutes or more with the daguerreotype. So let's start. How do you tell stories? Okay, how do you tell stories? Now, here's an even more meta question. How do you tell stories through film? Is it just about having a camera in your hand and shooting away, filming away? Or is there a system to it? Is there a rhythm to telling stories through film? Let me take a sip of my coffee while you think of that. Okay, so let's begin. How do you tell stories through film? Today, I will introduce to you what we call a screenplay. Okay, what is a screenplay? You see the description on your screen. That's not a pun, but it's fun to say. So, a screenplay is a written work for a film, television show, or other moving media that expresses the movement, actions, and dialogue of characters. So, you can call it a script. I like to call it a screenplay, and it's essentially the blueprint for a movie. If you do drafting or architectural drafting, the blueprint is basically it's just the basis for the entire building project. And the screenplay is really the foundation. It's what you look into and you go back to it so that you can track if you're still giving your story justice, if you're still telling your story well. Now, a screenplay is written in a specific format, and there are different elements to it. And today I will show you, and we'll talk about those elements together. So, these are the 7 rules for formatting screenplay. They're also basically screenplay elements, okay? You see them on your screen: font, scene headings, action, character, dialogue, parenthetical, and transitions, your transitions. So, first, let's begin with font. Now, in the film industry or in the film world, the preferred and really the standard font for a script or a screenplay is Courier. You can also use Courier New. It's just such a readable classic font, and it's reminiscent of typewriters, the typewritten manuscripts of the past. So this is an example. The quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog. You can easily find it in your word processing applications. It you can find it anywhere. So not difficult to do at all, or not difficult to use at all. Now let's go to scene headings. When you talk about scene headings, they are what they are. They are at the beginning of a new scene, and they're always written in all caps. They're left aligned, okay? And they have 3 parts. The first part is the interior or exterior, basically just to tell the director or tell the actors reading the script if this scene is happening inside or outside. Okay, for some scenes, and we'll talk about that in another episode, in another session, some scenes actually have both interior and exterior because the character is moving in and out. We'll talk about that more another time. But you also have location. So here you see BQ Mall. Tapos, day or night. So when does it happen? You can also say afternoon. It can be a specific time like 12 noon, noontime, or 1 p.m. Okay, so just those 3 very basic elements, always in all caps. The third formatting rule of screenplays involves action. So action is basically it's describing everything that we are going to see on screen. Okay? What the characters look like, where they are, their movements, the props that they're holding, and it's really the visible stuff. You have to be careful when you're writing action because I think the tendency at times is to write what the character is thinking instead of showing what the character is thinking through actions. Okay, it's the actions, it's the behavior, it's what the setting looks like. It's just how you paint the scene for the audience. So the one of the best ways when you're writing action is you kind of close your eyes and visualize a space and a character. So if your character is upset, kung nasuko siya or nalain siya, what are the things that your character might do? So let's say your character is in like a dilapidated room, so it's falling apart. So your character enters a room, and you don't just say dilapidated, you have to describe it, right? So your character enters the room, and then there the ceiling is, there are holes in the ceiling. The wall, the painting on the wall is just it's gone, it's peeled off. The bed is broken. The things are old. The dresser is dusty. So just stuff like that. You are painting the scene, and then you see the character. How do you paint the scene of a character who is upset? So you say, John walks into the room and slams the door behind him. He sits on the bed with force. He grabs his pillow and screams. Okay, so he screams into his pillow. So those are some ways that you can make a scene very, very vivid. Please take note of that because when I check your script in the future next month, I don't want to see John is angry. I want to see the behaviors that accompany the emotion. Okay? Noted? Great. So let's go to number four, character. Character, okay, for character, you really want it to be center aligned and in all caps. Show you an example later. And then the formatting for dialogue is right below the character. So you write the basically the lines below the character's name. Next, you have the parenthetical. Now, the parenthetical comes in brackets, and it's basically a description of how the character is saying something. It's not, you don't have to use it all the time, but for example, if it's implied, for example, you are implying jealousy. Okay, the character, uh, Kimmy, is jealous of her boyfriend, Jake. Okay, so she says something like, ayaw na. No, ayaw na. But the ayaw na is said in a tone that's a little bit, paano ba, passive aggressive. So there's this hint of disappointment and a hint of jealousy in her voice. So I'm not good at this. Honestly, this is one of the more difficult things, like describing how the character is saying something. It takes a lot of intentionality to be able to effectively do this. Okay? But we'll learn together. Next, we have transition. So, ang transitions class, right aligned, all caps, and they tell you how to get from one scene to another. So, let's say, for example, where is that? Where is our transition slide? Great, I'm back. Let's say, for example, we have cut to, or jump cut to, or smash cut to. I'll teach you more of that later. There are different terms or phrases for the transitions, and they basically describe if the transition from one scene or another is abrupt, is it dissolving into the next scene, is there like a match cut? For example, a character puts down you know a knife, and then the next scene is uh a knife just cutting a meal, like cutting apples or something like that. So there are different kinds of transitions, and we'll discuss more of that in the later part of our lecture series. Now, this is a sample portion of a screenplay. You have the scene heading, so it's interior. It's in a trailer home, and it's happening by day, and you see the action, right? So this is the home of the boy band. So if it's the first time a character is appearing in a script, you really want to put it in all caps, okay? But that's only the first time. So the boy band, aka Dan and Jack, they too are drinking beer and counting the take from their last smash and grab. Money, drugs, and ridiculous props are strewn around the table. So very short description, but you get a picture, right? It's in a trailer, and there's beer, they're counting change. Then on the table, money, drugs, props. So you get an idea. And from that scene, the director, the production design team, they can now imagine, okay, what's needed for this scene. What does it look like? What's the tone of the scene? Now we have the character, and that's Jack. Again, it's center aligned, it's in all caps. And then the parenthetical in Vietnamese subtitled. So maybe if he's using another language, right? Like you want to add some flavor to your short film and you want to use Bisaya, for example. So you're gonna need to add subtitles, and you will indicate it in your parenthetical. And then the dialogue, as you can see, is under the character. And it usually, if it's a subtitle, you have to put it, you have to put it in italics, just so there's a difference between a character speaking in English right here versus a character speaking in another language like Vietnamese. Now, this is the transition, and you learn more about that later. Great. So remember, class, more than formatting, the content of your story is key. More than formatting. Let me tell you that the content of your story is key. That's not to say that you will disregard formatting. I will be particular about formatting because I really want you to level up your game. Some of you have tried directing or creating your own short film. And I want you to be able to really follow the standard as best as you can and see why the standard works. Why does this kind of formatting work in order to tell the story effectively? Okay? The reason why formatting matters for screenplays is that because the code is agreed upon by the filmmaking community, you and your team, the director, the pre-prod crew, the prod crew, even the post-prod crew, the editors, they know just how to place themselves. So you have your pre-prod crew, and they're your cameraman. You and your cameraman men are camera people are deciding on like the shot list and how to organize the shoot, right? Your producer can budget accordingly because you can plan it from an organized screenplay. You can create a film plan, a filming plan that will best maximize your budget. Okay. And then during production, it's just flow, right? Your actors will not have a hard time reading through the script, internalizing it, memorizing their lines and rehearsing their lines. And then for editing, right? So they see the flow of your screenplay. It's a crucial guide for putting the whole movie together. So stories tell us how to behave in the world. I think I'm not sure if you can relate to this, class, no? Pero there have been many times in my life when I didn't know what to do. So I wanted to make a decision, and I'm like, I don't know what to do. I don't know who to ask, and Google is not helping. So one thing that I've tried to do is I watch a movie. I watch a movie that's related to my dilemma, and somehow I find an answer. Like in the past, I had some relationship questions, and it was awkward to ask my parents. And I've asked friends, but I just kind of needed something, more visual, more concrete. So I looked for a film that had the same theme, and I watched it. And funnily, I found an answer through it. So, 'di ba? Ang ganda. And if I can just tell you the situation, it was about like if somebody tells you that they like you but you don't like them back, what's the best way to deal with that, especially if they're your friend? And I love the movie that I watched. It is called wait, I'll send the link or I'll send the trailer. But the movie, grabe, is so intense, class. I love the movie. And what I love the most is the character had the same dilemma. One of her best friends really liked her, pero she doesn't feel the same way. The good thing is that, or the bad thing is that she never had the courage to tell her friend. And ang ending is na in love siya o lain nilang friend, and na-hurt ang iya best friend to discover nga in love na day siya somebody else. Pero ganahan kay the friend, the best friend said, "You should have just told me the truth." I was like, yeah, I should just tell tell this person the truth. So nga na siya, class, these kinds of stories, whether it's film, whether it's in the books that we read, they help us know how to behave, how to face decisions. And they're also a way of understanding each other. For example, movies like Wonder, they're a way of understanding what is it like to be a kid with living with deformities, right? Or if you watch Every Child is Special, what is it like to be a kid with autism? Autism spectrum disorder. Or what is it like to be a kid with special needs? So it's a way to understand another person. Movies that document the lives of different cultures, like The Kite Runner. It's a way to understand, okay, what's happening in places like Afghanistan, what is happening in the Muslim community. And it helps you understand and see the world through their eyes. Okay? It's a way of building empathy. That's my favorite. When you are able to tell a story effectively, you can make the other person experience your reality. So, for example, let's say mental health or mental illness like depression and anxiety or other, more severe cases. When you make an effective story where you let the person walk into the head, the eyes, the heart of a person with mental illness, you don't need a lot of words. You just need to show them through the film what it's like. When you are able to effectively do that, you get to ripple through their reality, like you disturb their own mindset, their own belief system about mental health, and you, little by little, you get to convince them or you get to influence them. You get to say, hey, this is what it's like, and it's real, and it's not easy, and I need help. Okay, so these are ways that stories are so essential, especially for you as future social workers. Now, film is a storytelling medium. And you know what that means. Filmmaking is storytelling. It's one of the most powerful forms of mass communication in the world today. And proof of that is the skyrocketing number of views on vlogs and just YouTube videos and TikTok clips. And we are visual people. We love to see, you know, stories more than just listening to them. Now, the earliest storytellers had to speak. Can you imagine that? No television. They had to speak their stories around a campfire. But now, with modern technology, we are able to take a story and have it play out in front of the audience as though it was all happening in present time. So, question class, and please write your answers in the comment section and in your notes. Okay? What are the advantages or disadvantages of this advancement? What are the advantages or disadvantages of this advancement? So, pause for a while and pause the video and think of that. Before, people would sit in the campfire, people would maybe watch somebody dancing or acting out the story, and then somebody orally passing on what happened, narrating. And then today, all we have to do is to click play and we see the story unfold before our eyes. We don't really have to think about it too much. So, what are the advantages or disadvantages of this advancement? Okay, I take it you have paused and you have written your answer. So, for me, one of the best advantages, of course, is just accessibility, right? People are able to access your story from anywhere in the world. So you tell your story, and somebody from Malaysia or the US, or not Antarctica, but like Greenland or something, somebody from across the world can access your story if you put it on public in YouTube or in Facebook or on Facebook. And that accessibility makes the world both smaller and bigger at the same time. So you talk with a friend from across the world, and you learn that you're not so different after all. And they learn about your culture and you learn about their culture. So it's just beautiful to watch, right? But also for me, the disadvantage of this advancement is just, I believe, the the ability to imagine has greatly, what's the word? Decreased somehow. We are not really able to spend time in silence. Like something has to be playing all the time, whether it's background music or a podcast or, just something on YouTube or Spotify, even if we're doing other things. So we're not able to stay silent anymore, or we're not able to close our eyes and imagine and deeply reflect and meditate, diba? That's our word from the other session. Meditate. I think it's more difficult for many of us to think deeply and to focus on people and experiences and life. So those are some of the disadvantages. Okay, let's proceed. I'd love to know your thoughts, so please comment below. Comment in the comment section of this video. Now, what makes a story? You have three components of a story. Remember this, you will find this in your midterm exam. What makes a story? You have the protagonist, the goal, and the obstacle. Okay? So, again, that's protagonist, goal, and obstacle. Let's quickly go through this. Protagonist is basically the main character. Okay? And the main character of your story has one very important thing to do, and that is to change. Can you say can you say that with me? The most important thing, one very important thing that they need to do is to change. Okay, so this change, my dear friends, my lovely, lovely friends and students, is character arc or character development. It's called character arc or character development. Remember those words. It's a character arc, or it's really the process of developing the character. And it's not superficial, but it's on the inside. So let's say your character starts out a racist. By the end of the story, his racism has been destroyed and he is a completely new person. Or maybe at the beginning of the story, your character does not believe in the need for mental health or to take care of yourself and your mental health. But by the end of the story, it everything has changed. You know what I mean? Okay. So a character flaw. Now, this is very important, class. Your main character, your protagonist, must have what we call a hamartia. If you know The Fault in Our Stars, hamartia is a fatal flaw in the character. Now, this is important to show that your character is really growing, developing, or changing. There has to be a fault in your character's personality because of their belief in this world or about this world. So, for example, the racist. The character flaw of this racist, well, aside from being racist, is really being very judgmental or being so judgmental that he takes it out on every single person of color. So every time he sees somebody of a different skin color, he gets freakishly mad, very mad, and just takes it out and screams or becomes mean to this person. So that's a character flaw. Okay? So if it's a character that's very, very shy. So maybe their character flaw is not necessarily that they're shy, but that they're afraid to do anything because they don't want to be rejected, or they don't want to fail, or they don't want to make a mistake. So those are some character flaws. Essentially, the heart of character flaws need to be selfishness. Okay, so for example, your flaw or is being self-centered. Your main character is self-centered, and the belief in that character's head is everyone is selfish. So para sa imong character, let's name the character. I don't know. Give me a name. Let's name the character. Jenny. Wala may Jenny sa atong class. Kintahay si Jenny. Self-centered siya. And ang yahang mindset, no, your belief is mindset, di ba? Tanang tao selfish. So, dapat ako pud. Like, everyone is gonna look out for themselves. So, I'll look out for myself. Bahala sila. Okay, but you have to show, how did Jenny get this wrong belief? Maybe in her past, she actually exercised selflessness, but she was disappointed. Maybe she believed in somebody, but she was put down. Okay? So there's always a reason behind a character flaw. Now, along the course of the story, the main character will be overcoming their flaw. I love this. And people will develop a new understanding. So Jenny, for example, is so selfish to the point na pag maglinya, dili gyud niya paunhon ng mga senior citizen. Pag naay bus and naay buntis, di gyud niya ihatag iyang seat. Because it's like, to each his own, no? Pag dili taas og ranggo, like ang ga-serve sa iya sa restaurant or ang galimpyo sa CR, wala, bahala mo diha. No, tunog-tunuban na niya ang gimapan. So maybe that was Jenny, but then something happens to Jenny throughout the story. Okay, maybe somebody shows her selfless love and her belief changes. Some people are actually selfless. Or being selfish causes suffering. So maybe around the almost at the end of the story or at the critical point of the story, Jenny will realize nga hala, my selfishness caused other people harm. And then she realized that's what happened to me. I hurt people because I've been hurt before. And Jenny experiences catharsis. She experiences healing. And she gets a turning point. And she changes for good. Okay? Diba? Ang ganda. So that's her new understanding. Now, there are films or stories that are considered tragedies. And in a tragedy, characters don't change and characters end up dead. Everybody dies. I don't encourage these kinds of stories for you guys, especially as future social workers. Not that we want fairy tales, but we also don't want to be nihilistic. Like, we don't want to be just super duper duper dark. Okay, there's enough darkness in this world. Let's not add to it. Still, you are the storyteller. Okay? Our ability to change is what keeps us alive. That's the same principle in filmmaking and in life. So your character remains significant, remains relevant, remains important because he or she is changing. Diba? And it's an encouragement to us, class. It's an encouragement to you as well that take the adventure, take the adventure of discovering how you can still grow. And as you grow, take it as a challenge. Imagine yourself being the protagonist in a story. And you are the protagonist of your story. And imagine the obstacles, imagine you have a goal, and imagine you conquering the obstacles to get to your goal. Okay, we'll get to obstacles and goal in a bit. Now, no change equals death. So let's be changing. It's important that the protagonist does not change easily. So usahay no, there are films nga murag sudden or drastic kaayo kana yung naay mamatay sa film tapos diha na dayon mag-change ang main character. I have nothing against that, but if you notice, class, even in real life, it's not always that drastic or that dramatic. 'Di ba? I'm not sure how, but I've lost somebody. I lost someone I love in 2021, and I made a commitment, I'll never be the same again. But somewhere along the way, I found myself falling into the same patterns. Um, that's not to say that it's impossible to change because of death. It's just that you need to be more realistic. What are the things that make you change? For example, maybe it's a simple affirmation from somebody na for a long time dili mo okay. Or I know somebody nga before she died, gi-forgive niya ang nakapasakit niya just by squeezing the person's hands. Di naman siya kastorya, di na siya kaingon nga, I forgive you, pero iyang gi-squeeze ang hand sa person. And that was forgiveness to her. So, find ways to make the change subtle. For example, instead of showing if na ay mama o anak nga magsigig away, then na something dramatic na mahitabo, then ma-okay na dayon sila, magbanding-banding na dayon sila, I love you, I love you. Don't make it like that. Make it subtle. For example, um, magsigig yaw-yaw ang mama, ang anak, ang gusto ra sa mama, manilhig ang bata. Ang bata, di yun manilhig, sige ragduwa. And as their relationship progresses, something happens. And maybe the end of your film is nanilhig na siya. Di ba? So little things like that can make a film. Let's proceed. Let's go to your goal. So you have the protagonist and you have the goal. And the goal is basically what the protagonist is trying to achieve. The goal is what drives the protagonist forward. It's the one that fuels the story. And the audience is left asking, will the protagonist achieve the goal? That's what keeps you going. Will he or she get there? Okay? So, for example, Frodo must destroy the ring. Katniss must bring down the capital. Marlon must find Nemo. Hopefully, kailan mo na nilang tulo. Or, these three characters. So, they have goals, right? And these are the goals that keep them going. Now, let's proceed. Okay, let me go back a bit. For the goal, um, okay, music videos, powerful story, and narrative. So, there are music videos that are so powerful because they have a story. Think of, let's say, was it Paubaya by Moira? It garnered so many views, right? And there was a story to it. It was about Joshua and Julia and what they were going through as a couple and closure, basically, and releasing each other. So there's a goal to it. The goal is really for their fans to also have closure about their relationship, to make peace that they are okay and they can all move forward. That's one example of something that's short, but it conveys a message that's powerful enough to reach their audience. Now let's go to obstacles. An obstacle is anything that gets in the way of the hero achieving their goal. Ang pinaka-function sa obstacle class is to create conflict, no? The friction, no? Kay conflict creates drama. Kung wala conflict, wala drama. Wala wala thrill, wala flavor ang story. It's like how pepper or sili, no? How they flavor your dish. And they're not always pleasant, but they give you that kick and helps you enjoy the experience more. So the basic premise is someone wants something, so your protagonist wants something, and then something is stopping it. So the stopping it's the obstacle. So there are three forms of obstacles. They can be found in the physical world, they can be found in supporting characters, and they can be found in the protagonist's flaw. So it's world, okay, man versus world, man versus man, and man versus self. Okay, you know that um, if you're studying just the turmoil and the conflict of man and his environment. So the major wow, that's my coffee coming out. I'm sorry. So man versus world, the physical world. There can be times, like for example, time is an obstacle. 24 hours, the movie. 24 hours, the movie. Uh, he's up against the clock, right? Another obstacle. Let's see. Can you think of movies wherein the major obstacle is the physical world? So 2021. Sorry, 2012, the movie, right? Everything is ending. What else? See, it's so hard to think on the fly when you're thinking of films. Sige daw. Unsa pa nga mga movies nga physical world ang iyahang nga kontra? Anyone? I'm thinking of Water World, but Obstacle man siya. The whole water situation is also an obstacle. Sige daw. What else? Yeah. So for a lot of this, so see, no, not okay. But anyway, you get the picture, right? There is a physical world that's keeping the protagonist from achieving his or her goal. Now, let's go to the second element. You have, okay, why are we going to film genres? So let's go to supporting character. When we talk about supporting characters being obstacles, they can either be a villain or an antagonist, or they can be the enemies, like the minions of the antagonist, or they can also be there are also allies. No, yung mga friends niya who help her get to the goal. Okay, mukapit na sa film genres class. Now, one of the major determinants, like what determines the obstacle, is also the genre of your film. So if it's romantic, usually the obstacle is man to man, right? There are parents who don't want the relationship to work. There is a best friend who's standing in the way. There's a third, parang there's a love triangle, di ba? If it's historical, usually it's like government or a rebel group. So it's still largely man to man. It can also be man against the physical world in movies like 10,000 BC and uh yeah, so something like that. Movies that kind of look back into the past and like, oh, okay, Titanic is also historical in a sense, but largely it's been just expanded. The story has expanded. But the historical element is that one of their obstacles is the iceberg, like a physical obstacle. Okay, so detective stories, what are the usual obstacles? It can sometimes be internal, like if you have a psychopathic character, diba? Gets ninyo, okay? And the rest. So thriller, adventure, horror. Now horror, usually it's, man versus not the physical world, but the intangible world, like the unseen world. Then you have science fiction. Most of like Interstellar. So there are physical world obstacles to Interstellar. Love that film. Now, there are also subgroups, and these subgroups are action, comedy, tragedy, war, westerns. So you can have a romantic comedy, right? You can have an action thriller. You can have western science fiction or a science fiction western. You can have an adventure tragedy. You can have, horror set in war. Those are just some examples of how you can mix up main genres and subgroupings. Hunahunaan na niyo yung sugod class. When you make your short film, what genre would you like to use? Okay? Unsa ka? I'm excited for to see, what's on your mind. Let's proceed. So, allies, encourage protagonist, and yeah, to go beyond the comfort zone within. Okay, not within the comfort zone. And enemies hinder the protagonist from their goal. They stand in the way, right? Okay, so they put pressure on the protagonist to change, both the allies and the enemies. So it's this best friend encouraging, giving you a pep talk, to go after the girl of your dreams. For enemies, it's the guy who's also pursuing her. Okay? Now, the protagonist's change as most important. So the change in the protagonist is the most important element of your film. You have to make sure that every scene contributes to your character changing gradually. Something is happening, not immediate, like not in a big way, but little by little you show the audience, okay, he's beginning to change. Like he used to frown a lot, then it's turning into a smirk. It's turning into a toothless, like a no teeth smile. Then now he's laughing. Okay, it's a gradual. It's this gradual transformation. That's your review slide. So you can pause the video and read that. Now, the theme, okay, the moral of the story, and it is a judgment about how we live our lives. Now, a theme can be family, home, friends, coming of age, grief, and loss. Um, it's so important that the writer's view of the subject is expressed in how the character changes. For example, if it's family and this person, has hurt or deep wounds sa iyang family, and uh, it led him to be bitter sa iyang pamilya. So nilayo siya, niadto siya glaing lugar, ni puyo siya somewhere else. But at the end of the film, as the events took place, finally he had the courage to go home and realize that he's been running away this whole time. Okay? So next we have an example, Lion King. The theme of Lion King is that responsibilities are more important than our individual desires. So, Simba had a call upon his life. And although he wanted other things, he had to take on the responsibility of being king, right? He had to wear that jungle crown and take on that role because no one else can do it. And it may mean sacrificing or leaving things behind. And that's okay. It's part of his character development. Now, it's important not to make the theme too obvious. So in Spider-Man, it's so clear. With great power comes great responsibility. A character actually says your theme. Sometimes you don't have to say your theme out loud. It can be implied. So, for example, in the story of what's in my head is like 500 Days of Summer. It's implied. The message is implied that wow, it's just sad, right? Like all of these, one is holding back and one wants something, and when he's finally ready, the other person gives up. So it's this whole like friction and how we need to be willing to pursue what we want. So, for example, Reply, was it 1994 or 1988? If you've watched this Korean drama, it's called Reply 1988, if I'm not mistaken. There are two men vying for the same girl, and they both like this girl, and you see it throughout the drama. It's so beautifully portrayed. And boy one, it seems like he's winning. Like, he likes him so much. He likes her so much. It's been years, like since high school he has liked her. However, boy one is too afraid, too cowardly, and he he doubted himself. So, na-delay siya. Whereas boy 2, dugay pa na-discover nga ni-angay siya sa girl. But he was sure of how he felt. He was vocal. He was like, I like you. I will pursue you. So between the two, if ikaw ang audience, maglibog ka. Like who will win? Who will get to her first? Finally, the one of the final scenes is the girl breaks up with her last boyfriend, and she is crying and she is sad and she is heartbroken. And when they both discover it, boy number one hesitates. He hesitates. Boy number two runs. So who got to her first? Who won her heart? Boy number two. Okay, so it's wonderful. And really one of the takeaways is that you want someone who is sure of you. You want someone who will not hesitate. You want someone who will, just pursue you until the end. It's beautiful. Now, okay, fame doesn't bring you happiness. If that's your theme, all the scenes, the conflict of the story, the goal of the protagonist must be related to the theme. Okay? So if you have The Greatest Showman, would it match? So if you have somebody who really wants to be famous and big, and then it comes to a point where everything burns down and he, loses his family, loses the things that mattered to him in the past. And in the end, It's not the answer. It's never enough. Okay? Okay, so you have symbolism. In Titanic, there are symbolisms. For example, the pendant. So Rose had a heart pendant, and in Titanic, she releases it and to the bottom of the sea, as if to say, "My heart is in the bottom of the sea because Jack is there." Okay, those are some symbolisms. Okay, now, okay, this is your summary slide. You can pause the video and jot down notes. Okay, let's go. So film is a visual medium. Okay, my screen is frozen. Let it go. Okay, there. Film is a visual medium. And basically it's moving images. Okay, I told you that already. And let's proceed. How do stories work on screen? There's one golden rule for screenwriters, my dear, lovely students, my wonderful students. And it is, remember this because this will come out in your midterm exam: show, don't tell. Say that again. I'll say that again. Show, don't tell. What does that mean? So when you say show, don't tell, you need, there are movies like Above the Clouds, very little dialogue, but you see the actions. And if you are observant, you will get the symbolisms of the story. So, for example, if you notice Above the Clouds, the boy does nothing to touch the mountain. Like, he does not litter, he doesn't desecrate, no kanang si Ruru Madrid, I mean, he's afraid of the mountains. Pero ang lolo, he abuses the mountains to a degree. Like he smokes. He opens the burial cave. The container, the casket. He opens it. So it's a symbolism. Kung nabantayan na ninyo, Direct Pepe wanted it to be a symbolism that the past generations have done so much to destroy the environment. So quarrying and all the coal mining, all the pollution. So those are all like the past, all the deforestation. The people of old, the older generation have destroyed the environment, and now the young generation is left, observing this, and hopefully they will be different. Hopefully they will not do the same. They will revere the environment and they will take care of it. Nakita na ninyo? So you have to have a sharp eye, sharp ears, a sharp mind. Okay, padayon ta. We're almost done. Okay, remember silent films. When things were silent with some, orchestra background, the key thing was to make people understand the language of the heart through actions. And we find out who people truly are when they are under pressure. So, the teabag illustration class, 'di ba ang teabag, dili mo gawas ang iyang nga flavor kung dili siya ilublob sa init nga tubig. So, ingan asad, if you can create a story nga wala kaayo istorya pero makita sa imong character ang iyang pagdevelop. Naa gani hilom ra tanan. And then a conflict arises. And when conflict arises, mugawas ang iyahang mga tinaguan nga attitudes, tinaguan nga beliefs, and diha na ma-challenge ang iyang nga beliefs and attitudes. I'll show you examples of these short films in our future lectures. But for now, think of that. What story would you like to tell? It can be something close to your heart, very real to you. It can be based on a true event. Or it can be something you came up with in your imagination. Right now, start thinking of that. And Joshua Dickinson said that abnormality creates the character. There has to be something different or quirky about this human being. I really want to show you a clip. I wasn't able to prepare it beforehand. It's coming to mind right now. And if I can, hopefully, I will be able to. But while I look for it, ooh, you can just try to think of that right now. What story do you want to tell? Okay? So think of that, please. And I'll look for it right now. See if I can find the video and we can watch it together. And if my laptop does not cooperate, we are going to just you can watch it on your own and I'll look for the link. Okay, it's not cooperating, so I'll put the link in the description. Okay, avoid expositional dialogue. Um, kana bitang obvious kayo. Kana bitang murag radio drama. Kamatay mo sa drama sa radyo usahay nga gidunggab nako. Ah, gidunggab jud nga na. So it's like you're describing. They have to do that because it's the radio. But in film, people see. So if you want to show that someone is poor, you don't the person doesn't have to say pobrihan ako eh. I'm so poor. He doesn't have to say that. You can just show the house, the clothes that he's wearing maybe if it can be an indicator. Or the fact nga walay sunod iyang ref. Stuff like that. So you use subtle imagery to make your point. Okay? Here's your summary for this part. Show, don't tell. Use action to show character. Create abnormal characters. Make them quirky. Make them interesting. For Wonder, it's such an interesting character. He's so different physically, and he has his own struggles. But he's so gifted, right? I know somebody. I was watching a vlog the other day. I'll share the link in the description. The description. It was about this woman with I don't remember the exact condition, but like dwarfism. So she said it's a form of dwarfism. Ang naka-amazing sa iya is she has never felt insecure about it. Like she never really struggled with it, if I'm not mistaken. Yung parang point pa nga, she's so different because she's the one comforting her parents. Na parang Ma, it's okay if they say that I'm pandak, if they say I'm small, kasi I really am small. It's okay. They're just stating the obvious. So you see, it's so interesting. It's so refreshing to see a character like that. And she's a real person. Okay, so now we're gonna do your log line. So exciting. You will be doing your log line. I'll be uploading a sample logline sheet, and this will be part of your midterm exam. So learn to do it. Learn to do it now. For your logline development, what part of story do you have and what part of the story do you need? Now, three elements, right? So logline, you have the protagonist, you have the goal, and you have the obstacle. So with the protagonist, you need to know their flaw, you need to know how they're going to change, and you need to know what job would they be least qualified for. So maybe it's that woman no nga naay dwarfism being a mom sa like sa for example sa was it Onanay? I remember I haven't seen that pero Onanay. So it's interesting because this is a woman who has limitations, but she's a mom of a child of normal height, normal proportions. Pero interesting siya. It feels like she's not really qualified for it because of her limitations. Pero you will be proven wrong, right? Okay. So next, if you start with a goal, who would be the worst person for the goal? So if the goal is, let's say, topping the bar exam. Maybe the worst person for the goal is somebody nga wala jud klaro sa iyang pag-eskwela. But somehow, somewhere along the way, something happens and this person tops the bar exam. okay, or the board exam. What is their flaw? How would they need to change? What obstacles would force that change? Okay. Okay, there's more to this. I don't want you to like overthink it. I think the most important thing that I want you to see is that it's simple. Now, a log line, as much as possible, is just one sentence. And here's a like a an overview, a format, if you will, a template for the log line. A flawed protagonist who has a goal and faces obstacles which force them to change. I'll show you a sample right now, I think. Okay, here. After his son is captured in the Great Barrier Reef and taken to Sydney, a timid clownfish sets out on a journey to bring him home. Kinsa ka ni? Yeah, it's Marlon in Nemo. So the protagonist is the clownfish. His flaw is he's timid, he's shy. What is his goal? He wants to bring his son home. That's his goal. What's the obstacle? Okay? The fact that the son was taken from the Great Barrier Reef to Sydney. Okay, so grabe yung kanyang lalakbayin. That's what his obstacle is the physical world. Next, ito. You get that, right? Or the son is captured, the son is kidnapped. That's another obstacle. This is I think this is Avengers. Yeah, this is Avengers. So you have Earth's mightiest heroes come together and must learn to fight as a team. That's the obstacle because they don't get along well. To stop Loki and his alien army. So they have a goal. Okay, so that's your summary slide, and I will show you what the log line worksheet looks like. So you have your protagonist, your goal, your obstacle, and your log line. When I joined a workshop on screenplay writing, this is the format that they gave. And this is the sample that I submitted. The movie that I wanted to make was called Ayaw Ko Kalimti. And the protagonist is Joel, an anxious and apathetic 12th grader. So you see his name, you see his flaw. What's his flaw? He's anxious and he's apathetic. Grabe no. And then the goal is he must finish a video diary project about his grandmother's life. The goal is to graduate from high school. But how he gets to the goal is he must finish a video diary project. His obstacle is that his grandmother has advancing dementia. Now, the logline is in order to graduate, an anxious and apathetic 12th grader must finish a video diary project for school about his grandmother's life while she struggles with advancing dementia. That's your sample logline. I hope that's clear, class. I will be sending the sample worksheet in our Facebook group and give it a try because this will be part of your midterm examination. You will create your own log line. Okay, so that's going to be your assignment. Create your log line, and I will see you next week. Take care.